What should we be watching as the polls start to close?
Sure, and thanks for having me. I think, first of all, you're going to see some returns from some key states. Florida and North Carolina right off the bat. Those are must-win states for Trump. So if Hillary shows a good lead in those early on, then that's trouble for him. At the same time, you'll also see results from Pennsylvania. And if it looks like Trump may be gaining ground or might be close in that election, then you're going to start to see things tighten up pretty quickly.
Doug, Florida historically, how shall I put it mildly, does not have a history of giving us results quickly or accurately. If you listen to the early results last time around, you would have thought Romney was doing well. You could have gone back. John Kerry looked like he was going to be president. And of course, there's the famed hanging chads. Should we expect anything different from Florida this time around? I
don't think so. So that's exactly right. If we hear an early call from Florida in either direction, that's going to be a huge sign. Well, maybe not believe it.
Here's what I would say. Historically, the early call, we've heard early calls, and early calls in each of the last elections, 3 of the last 4 elections, have been wrong.
That's fair, and that's why I'd say look at North Carolina, which is another state that's a must-win for Trump, and look at Pennsylvania, which if it swings to Trump, could show momentum's going his way. After that, take a look at the so-called blue wall, the things that the Clinton campaign have set up as the way she can't lose by holding, and that is Michigan and Wisconsin. If those states start to look a little bit more towards Trump, then we're going to have a very long evening.
What's interesting kind of in this environment where there's so much on social media, and we're going to talk with the guests later on where they're, encouraging voters to kind of take videos of while they're at, polls, and then I think it's Sinclair Broadcasting, and then post them. So there's a lot more involvement by just the average voter, if you will, and so much more information out there earlier. How dangerous can that be ultimately in kind of impacting maybe voters ultimately going to the polls?
Well, unfortunately, it looks like Eric Trump may have broken the law by tweeting out the picture of his ballot. So some people are taking it too far.
Wait, sorry, what did he do?
He took a picture of his actual ballot. And that's a crime in New York, punishable by a $1,000 fine or a year in jail.
Justin Timberlake did something similar, right?
I'm sure he did, and I'm sure there's plenty of examples. But
they'd be interesting cellmates, really.
But I would say that one of the things you have to be careful about, and this has been true ever since I've been doing polling since the early 90s, that people give you information during the day. The lines are really long in heavily Democratic districts, or I see this, I see that. You got to use those with caution. The danger, I think, comes if we do have an election that's one-sided in one way or the other, and people start getting very angry and saying the early calls are false. I'd say trust the information after the polls close. Before that, it's really a lot of noise.
Now, we do have some online outlets that are saying they're actually going to break with the tradition of recent years, which is not releasing numbers before a state's call. That is, they're going to put out numbers with early results, even while the polls are still open. I wonder what your take is on that. I mean, the adult way to look at it might be to say people can handle the information, will vote either way. But there's a reverse argument to be made as well.
I sort of look at it like a football game. We're in the 2-minute warning right now, and what's going on is we don't know what's going on in the field. Basically, we've had polling all the way up to this last period, and now the TVs are turned off. All this information, I think, is just noise. And I do think that, of course, people can handle the information. The problem is that now everybody has their own personal scoreboard. And when the final whistle blows and the actual score comes on, I just hope that everyone, either Democratic or Republican, can accept the results.
If anything, though, I take let's go back to polling and like with Brexit, right? We all kind of maybe assumed maybe a certain outcome, and we're shocked. What's been different about this? I mean, there's been so much that's been different about this election season, but in terms of your polling process, what has surprised you? What have you had to kind of adapt to?
I think we've moved a lot more towards online polling. We've done it in what we've done with Bloomberg, and actually we're at the vanguard of that, I think, in the industry. I think that landline polling has become a serious problem. I think when you think about the prediction and the predictability that polls have done in the U.S., they've done an exceptionally good job across the primaries. And really, I think as opposed to Brexit, where there was a lot of momentum in both directions at the end, you see a lot of consistency now. And I will go out there on a limb and say, I talked to Republican pollsters, I talked to Democratic pollsters. They all pretty much say the polling and data indicate that Hillary has a relatively high probability of winning. And if she loses, I would say that's actually a shock bigger than Brexit when it comes to polling.